everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Sandra Hartstone Show. Today, we're going to talk about the price of hate. I mean, honestly, have you ever seen our country be filled with so much hate and divisiveness? It seems like the respect and love for one another is just, well, it just seems like it's really struggling to be seen. Even our driving has become so aggressive. Well, what's brought this up is that I recently met an amazing woman. Her name is Henriette, and she has written a book about, are you ready for this? Her experience with the Rwandan Genocide. She lost everyone in her immediate family except for one sister and 60 family members altogether in the genocide that happened in the late 90s in Rwanda. You're probably like me. I heard about the genocide going on, but I never knew much about it. And I certainly never knew that our country, nor any other country on the face of this earth, stepped in to stop the killing. You know, we all thought we were going to learn a lesson after what happened in World War II, but I guess not. This genocide keeps going on in Sudan and many other places around the world. And Henriette is going to share with us today just exactly what that price of genocide looks like. So let me bring her on. Welcome, Henriette. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So you have written a book called By Any Means Necessary. And I have to say, it's a very gripping, powerful story because it's a story that, well, I don't really know anybody else here in America that would say they've lived through this or really understand what you went through. You know, we're talking about the genocide that took place in Rwanda in 1994 that so many of us heard about, but certainly didn't get an up-close and personal look into that. Harry, why don't you just start out and tell us your story?
It was, this genocide happened 28 years ago. During that time, 1 million of people were killed in 100 days. My family included, my friends, and pretty much a lot of Tutsis that I knew in my country were killed in this very short time. And
well, now wait, Tutsi is the tribe that you were a part of,
yes,
right?
It is a tribe.
And so what exactly was the fight about? Why were the Tutsis killed?
The history goes many years ago, during colonial time, when the country has 3 tribes. We have the Hutus, the Twa, and the Tutsis. According to history, many years ago, during colonial time, I would say in 32, in our country, there was division. I think the colony, what they tried to do is to divide and rule. So every time there is a division, there is a window to rule. So when the first colonists arrived in Rwanda, we had the king, and the king was a Tutsi. So the king, the Europeans were really surprised to see how the government, the kingdom, was very well organized. And they tried to figure out what was special about that tribe that was able to lead the country to pretty much similar to what the European politics, government was leading their countries. So they tried to figure out. They came up with what they call the racial study, where they tried to measure people's face and nose and had to figure out the difference between Hutu and Tutsis. That time, the European favored the Tutsis because they had the leadership, they had the power at that time. They sent them to the best school. In 1932, they introduced the first racial identity card in our country, where Tutsis and Hutus, everybody will have a driver's ID that shows the race, your tribe. So the division began there. There was so much animosity between the Hutus toward the Tutsis because they were favored by the Europeans. In 59, around 59ish, when the country wanted independence, they kicked the kingdom kicked out the Europeans, and they give power to the Hutu majority. And that was when the beginning of killing started in 59. The Hutu turned around and started killing Tutsis in 59, and they killed a lot.
So this is really similar to when Hitler exterminated the Jewish people.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, pretty much.
So it was based on because of the height and the nose.
The
They
height,
determined
the
you were Tutsi
noise.
because of your height and your
Yeah,
nose and all that.
wealthy, educated. But then after the Hutu majority took power, they oppressed the small Tutsis. The percentage of Tutsi in our country was very small, so they oppressed the tribe to the point where we're not allowed in the military. Hutu were not allowed to marry Tutsis. Schools, universities, you cannot go to university if you're a Tutsi. It was very hard. A few Tutsis went to university, but it was very hard to even have education. The Hutu have what they call the 10 Commandments. It was very clear that you cannot marry Tutsi women. You cannot send them to school. You cannot associate with those people. So they started oppressing them since then. And then
But now before all this had to happen, I bet you lived next door to one another and you were friends.
We're friends, and
right?
We're friends. There was so much intermarriage happening between us then after. But then in 90s, the beginning of 90s, this political issue turned to a different, story where the government tried to kill all Tutsis. The genocide happened in 1994, but the killing began in 90s. There were roadblocks everywhere in our country. Tutsis will not leave the country. We will not even go to a different province. A lot of them in 90s, they get arrested. Young people get arrested. Mothers get arrested. Fathers get arrested. I have a couple of family members who get arrested as well. That we invade our houses in the morning, trying to accuse us to search for, weapons that we didn't have. Just false accusation and treating us as if we're not human beings, just because of how God created us. Until 1990.
So how many of your family members were killed?
More than 62. More than 62 family members.
What?
More than 62.
Like all of your immediate family?
All my immediate family. I lost 4 siblings: my mother, my father, my grandmoms, my aunties, cousins. I have an auntie who had 6 daughters that I loved so much. We, pretty much some of them, they were pretty much my same age, and we grew together. All 6 of them gone. That nobody survived in my auntie's house.
Brothers and sisters?
There were just girls. My auntie, my father's sister had 6 girls, and all of them beautiful girls. All of them killed.
But didn't you have brothers and sisters?
I had the brothers and sisters. Yes, I lost brothers and sisters as well. We were 6 in a family, and only me and my sister survived.
So you lost 4 siblings,
yes, and including my.
And how old were you? How old were you at the time of this
that time? I was
happening?
20, and I was in my 20s.
Wow! How did you get through all of this? How does a person go through such devastation and survive?
It takes a lot of prayers. It takes a lot of prayers and to me, I give credit to the Lord. I remember after the genocide, it was a massive pain, so much pain that I didn't know how to handle, and everybody around me was in a pain. My little sister who survived that time, she was 13. I was trying to be a mother to her. My auntie who survived had lost my mom and everybody in the family. So it's like you in that pain, and everybody who survives with you, they all dealing with the same pain. So there's nobody to comfort nobody. It was so much pain. Oh, wow. Only God can take it away from me.
So, and how long have you been here in America?
14 years now. 14 years.
And when's the last time you were back home in Rwanda?
2012.
I'm imagining that the people are still suffering a great deal.
This genocide destroyed us in many ways, our country, and people will never recover from this. It's true that, by time we learn how to forgive, we learn how to live again, we learn how to not be stuck in these painful memories. but the aftermath of genocide, it's very terrifying and it's very tough because people like me and other survivors of genocide had lost everything. We lost our homes, we lost the people that we loved, we lost our animals. Pretty much everything that can make up a life was gone. So the aftermath is really, really sore. So many people are still hiding. We have a lot of issues. A lot of people are still dealing with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is being transmitted to the new generations because it never was treated. In a country like ours, our country where we have now a lot of people, therapists, a lot of, who has that experience on doing those, you know, therapy and counseling and the culture behind it where people don't even know what is PTSD. It was my first time to hear about the word PTSD in 1994. When I started to see people running, a lot of people, we need to see people with the flashbacks and we didn't even know what it was. Some people would associate with the witchcraft. Some people, it was just devastating situation where we tried to rebuild the country, understanding what had happened to us, and only God can save our country. I would say that.
Wow. In your book, you talked about this was haunting. You talked about when they discovered mass graves.
Yes.
With bodies that had been there for weeks, months, even years. Yeah. And you were part of looking for bodies and helping to identify. Yeah. Is that right?
That is true.
Oh my gosh. Henriette, what was that like? I mean, I just can't even imagine going through that.
After the genocide, a lot of victims, Tutsi victims were thrown in mass graves and there was no proper burial, and the government decided that we can do proper burial to the victims of genocide. And it was as citizens or survivors, and most of them we wanted to help other survivors because they have nobody to help them. Some families, you find only one survivor who survives, and they don't know where the remains of their family are. It was our responsibility, either survivor or citizen of Rwanda, to help each other to discover the remains of the people that we loved, because who was going to do the job? It was so painful to see how those victims were killed, because some of them we will find the objects that they used to kill them. If it was a piece of wound, it was still in their heads. It was so terrifying and very traumatizing. You see the little kids holding to their moms in those mass graves. And the smell, it's something that we will never forget, the smell.
Well, now, Henriette, where was the world theater? I mean, where was the world in all this? Was there any nation that came to the rescue of the Tutsis during this
Nobody. There are a lot of people, there was a lot of whistleblower, both national and international, who knew that the genocide was underway. As you know, genocide doesn't happen overnight. It follows a predictive patterns over months, years, days. For those national and international whistleblowers who knew what was happening in our country, they try to tell the world, this is happening. And nobody came to help us. And they cannot tell me that they did not know.
Yeah. Now, in your book, you talked about meeting President George Bush Jr.
Yes.
Or W. Did he apologize?
No, he did not. He did not apologize. He was visiting the memorial center where I was working. I happened to be in his picture, but in that short time, in my mind, I was like, I wish I can have 5 minutes with this man and ask him, where were you when this happened? Where were you when our family were being killed? But then, those people in high levels, you just get a picture and then they snap them, see them.
Well, we believe that after what happened to the Jewish people during World War II, we all say, oh, that's never going to happen again. But the truth is, it just keeps happening in
Uh,
place after place,
it's
doesn't
still
it?
happening. It's still happening in Myanmar with Muslim in the concentration camp within China. It's still happening in Sudan. It's still happening in the Congo DRC. It's still happening everywhere. It's still happening. It seems like it never again was only for a small group of people, never for the rest of the world.
Wow. Well, now, Harriet, why did you write this book?
I wrote this book to so many reasons. I wrote this book to keep the memories of my family, and I wanted my nephew, my daughter, and to know what a genocide, what the evil of genocide did to our family and to our country as well. But also, I wrote this book for somebody like you or anybody who can read this book and know that when such a thing happens again in the world, we need to speak up. Genocide can be prevented because it doesn't happen. We always see early warnings. If we see early warnings and do something, and that's what really, really made me unhappy, that there was those early warnings, but nobody did something to stop the genocide. So this is a book for anybody, a survivor, anybody who don't understand genocide and the pattern of genocide. But also I wrote this book to show the power of God, how God can miraculously save you and use your pain for a good purpose if you receive Jesus Christ in your life. I also read this book to talk about forgiveness, because without forgiveness, I want to be able to function now. Forgiveness healed me, and I received forgiveness because I choose to follow Jesus Christ as my Savior.
So what was let's talk a little bit about your spiritual journey out of this dark place. Because I imagine after this happened, you had to have been extremely depressed, distraught, not knowing what to do with your life, probably no direction. Is that right?
That's true. I was in this dark, I don't even know how to explain. I didn't see nothing. I don't feel nothing. I don't hear nothing. I was just in darkness. I was living in a fear of the past, fear of the present, fear of the future. I didn't even believe I can meet this age now, because a lot of family members that I have ever heard, they were killed in the previous war that kept happening in our country. So I tell sometimes I was talking to my friends, I'm so excited. I turned 50. How? I never imagined I can turn 50 because of the history of our country and Africa and all of that. But living in that darkness, that's when Jesus found me. I wasn't looking to give my life to Jesus. Actually, as a matter of fact, I have so many questions. Why God let me? Why God let this happen to my people, to my family? What have they done? What have I done? But then,
well, did you have survivor's guilt?
Yes, yeah, that's so. Because there's so many days where I felt that I wish I had died, because it was better that way. But God needed me, and He wanted to use me, and I received Jesus Christ in my life. When I received Jesus Christ, I remember I used to that time I was living with my aunt after genocide, one who survived because she was married to a Hutu man. I have lost hope in a human being. I didn't know who to trust. I didn't know who to go to. But then, when I received Jesus Christ in my life, I started feeling that I wasn't alone. He was by me through all that tough journey of healing. And I learned how to pray. I remember that when I received Jesus Christ, it's a long story, but I was passing by one of the small church in Africa. We have this little small church. And I was talking to myself, and I said, when can I come and pray? When did these people gather to pray? And there was two pastors fasting and praying in the church. They heard me. They opened the door. They invited me inside. And they asked me, would you like to receive Jesus Christ in your life? I said, yes. I never knew what the meaning of receiving Jesus Christ in my life. And sometimes I tell people that all you have to say is to say yes to him. The rest he's going to do it. And they give me a calendar. They say, we gather Saturday, we gather Sunday. Since then, I never left the church. I will go Saturday, I will go Sunday, I will pray. I learned how to pray first. I learned how to spend time with the Lord. And I learned how to read the word of God, trust him. And that's where, and fellowship and praise and fellowship. And that's when I received my healing.
How long did it take for that healing? Was it instant or did it take like years?
It took years. It took years. It took years. Sometimes I was in a denial. I would ask myself question, why should I? There was no reason to forgive these people. Why should I forgive somebody who killed my mother, my father, my young siblings, and my brothers, my uncles? How can I forgive these people? So I was battering those. I was battering the Holy Spirit for so many years until I had to give up and say, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord, I'm doing this, and I've received the power. He gave me the power of forgiving. And there's no such a thing than being able to forgive somebody who did such evil to you. It brings so much healing to you. And it's just an amazing feeling.
Wow. So did you have to say every day, I forgive, I forgive? Did you have to keep saying
No,
I
I didn't. There was one guy who was in a prison and he had killed my father. And one of my auntie who survived happened to be at the prison where, those prisons they're working. And he saw her and he approached her and he sent a message to me. He said, if you ever see her, tell her, I really want her to forgive me. And my auntie come to me who was not forgiving that time. And she shared the story. I said, whenever you see him again, tell him that he was forgiven many years ago. And it was such powerful to do that. And I knew that forgiveness was in my heart. I wasn't faking it. It was a gift from God.
Henriette, let's turn to why you came to the United States.
It's a long story. I came here as an international student through one of the church that I was, a church in San Antonio blessed me with education. So I ended up in the US. They paid my tuition for the very first 2 years of university, and then the economy went bad, and God did a miracle. Some other people who loved God, who obeyed God, they paid the rest of my university, and it was such a blessing to see. I always say, God bless America. God bless America.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how long have you been here now?
14
You've been
years.
here 14
Yes.
years? Mm-hmm. And so in a conversation we had, you talked about the warnings you would like to give America with what you see going on in today's society. Talk a little bit about that.
This nation may not be going through the direct violence like a genocide that we have, been seeing, I have experienced in my country. But there is a lot of onslaught propaganda going on, dividing people in these days.
Now, you said propaganda. Let's just back up here. You think propaganda is what's inciting people, and propaganda is what incited people in Rwanda. Is that right?
Of course. There's words. Words have power. In the media, sometimes we need to be paying attention to the word they use, because those words can be so powerful. And it can reside in people's hearts that it can incite people to hate each other instead of loving each other.
Yes, seems to be a lot of hate going on in the United States right now.
Yes.
So as someone coming from Rwanda into America, what is your perspective on what's going on right now across our country?
It's sad. It's sad because America is known to be a country with democracy, a country where, and that's why I guess we have a lot of refugees in this country. This is my adoptive country now. People come here for peace. People come here for safety. And then you get in there, instead of finding that peace and that safety, it triggers what you went through. Because you see what other people cannot see. Like somebody who have been through, who have seen the early warnings of genocide, who have seen how the role of media and the divisive propaganda we just see it, you feel it, and it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary. You just wanted to tell people, wake up, wake up. This is not healthy. Because I've seen where this immunity can rid the community and the country.
Wow. Now, when the genocide happened in Rwanda, were the people with this propaganda, were they targeting young people or just all people?
They were targeting mainly young people because it's easy to change the mind of young people. If you see a lot of people who commit genocide in Rwanda, who commit rape, they're the young generations. The very early in the 90s, the former government trained the militias. They were young people, 18, 20, 15. They tried to train those people. And those are the people who took the first step to go kill their neighbors.
Wow. That is the same thing that's happening now with our education system and everything. They're trying to change the minds of our young people and cause them to be unpatriotic and to think America's bad and, things like that.
Yeah.
What's the answer, Henriette? What is the answer? What should we do?
The answer, I wish I have the answer because this is being architected to the highest level. So the genocide, those architecting genocide know precisely what it is intended, right? But we as citizens, we need to speak up. We need to know how to love our neighbors no matter what. We need to believe that God authors differences. Only God authors differences. We need to agree that everybody deserves respect and dignity. Because if we wait for those in highest level to come and save us, it's not going to happen. We need to begin with us, within us, our families. What conversation do we have with our kids on our dining table or your grandkids? Just be open and talk about the issue of what's happening. And I know that back home, when I missed the prison, there was one time I was visiting the prisons, a lot of prisoners who killed, they tell you, oh, my mother used to tell me that Tutsi people deserve to be killed. Tutsi are bad people. My father used to tell me this. So what in America are we telling our kids now? On our dining table when nobody's watching, only God is watching. What a kind of education. How are we teaching our kids, our young generation, to love the neighbors, to love one another, to protect this country?
Wow. So what would you say to people like in the Middle East, like in Iran, where there's all this killing and stuff going on and where Christians are being persecuted by people of a different faith?
It's not right. It's not right to kill somebody because of how God created them. It's not right to kill somebody because they don't believe on what you believe. Because you're causing so much pain to that person, to their family, and to the community, and to the country in a whole. Because it's not the killing in the world, it doesn't just destroy individuals, it destroys everything in a country and around it.
Yeah. Well, now you kind of have a dream to go into schools and stuff in the United States. Is that right? Do I remember that right?
Yes, you do. Yes, that's right.
And what is it you're wanting to do?
I wanted them to exactly to what I have in this book and what is going on in this in the world, the human rights issues. I wanted them to learn from my experience of what we had to go through at a young age. Some of them in high school, university. I was the same age that time, or maybe my nieces or my nephew. But then to teach them, this is what happened to us because of this. And can be stopped if you do this. And maybe I'm hoping that the new generation in the country, even though everybody in this country or in the world can learn from what happened to the genocide against in our country when the genocide against Tutsi happened in 1994.
So even though this happened 28 years ago, does it feel like 28 years ago?
It feels that it happened yesterday because we still love what we have lost. We still love our families. The memories are really fresh. We still love our family, our aunties, our mothers, our sisters, our brothers. It just feels like it just happened.
So you just wrote the book recently. Did it take that long before you could actually write the book? Was it still too raw?
It's still too raw. It took me a while, of course. The book was published last year, and it was always in my mind. But I never had the courage and the strength of writing, of sitting down and be able to touch to some of the memories that I always have been avoiding, to look back and see those memories. But I get to the point where I said, somebody have to do it. And if somebody had to do this, it was me. And it was the beginning of COVID, and I took 2 weeks, scared that anyone else around the world. You know, I didn't want to go to work. I was like, what can I do in these 2 weeks? And I took my computer and I started writing. And it was an amazing experience. I cried. I rejoiced. I never knew that there was the moment where I was writing this book, and it felt that I was having a conversation with my mom or my father. It was so beautiful. And then I would burst into tears again and wipe my tears and get up again and then just start writing. So it was a mix of experience of happiness and happiness and sadness, but I knew it was for a good reason, and nothing was going to stop me to finish the book, and I did.
Wow. So it sounded like it was painful and cathartic and
Yes,
healing and all those things. Wow. Harriet, if you could see your dreams come true, what would that look like?
As somebody who went through all of these and see how many, there is something that my journey of surviving and the pain have shaped me to this level that I never knew who I am, but now I know who I am. God have given me this big heart. I see people when they cry, I hear them, I pay attention. I mean, He has given me so much love toward those who are suffering. And I sometimes say, Lord, is it the reason you protected me? And my dream to come true is to reach out and help others, especially the survivors of genocide who are still going through a lot. Because so many people think that 28 years have passed, oh, they are okay. They are not okay. They are not okay. Some of them, they have no home still. Some of them, they have no food. Some of them, they're still struggling. And the issue of post-traumatic stress disorder in our country, we have no such a thing. Like, my dream is always to have a center, like a big center where those survivors can go for therapy. I mean, just those wrap-up program to help them out and to make them feel that they are not alone. There is still a lot of work to do. There are still a lot of people with a lot of issues, aftermath of genocide, still hunting them.
So do you expect to go back to Rwanda to do some of this healing work?
Oh, yeah. I would definitely go there. I'm not sure if I'm going to go there and live, because my family is here now. But, oh, yeah, of course. I'm doing some with my nonprofit organization. We have done some training about PTSD so many times. That's what I'm going to focus on from now on, to help those, to empower those either financially or make them heal, just help them to get the therapy that they need. It's very important, because if you deal with a PTSD and somebody gives you $2 million now, I'm telling you, next month you won't have not even $1, because you're not stable mentally. And that's the issue, that after the genocide, they receive a lot of help. But the situation that we're in, that we're not capable of thinking right and doing what was right, making the right decision that moment after the genocide. And so many of them, after, even though they received a lot of maybe some help, it's now gone. They have nothing. Because the roots of supporting these people, it's mentally, to help them heal mentally. And then you can empower them financially.
So what you're saying is they're receiving financial help, but that's just a Band-Aid. They're not getting the emotional help. Yes, sir. And the trauma
Yes.
help. You know, you talked about in your book, this was really something that really hit me in your book. Over in Rwanda, the government did put in a museum. Is that what you
Yes.
called it? A
Yeah.
museum? It was a survivor
Mm-hmm.
museum, or it was really just a
A
genocide
genocide
museum.
memorial center. Yeah,
And
it's a memorial center. Yeah.
yeah, and you worked in this. You worked in this, and tell us about when people would show up that had survived this. What would happen when they would come to this
So the
place?
Holocaust, the not the Holocaust, the Genocide Memorial Center has mass graves. We have mass graves. We have a museum inside, exhibition inside, and survivors of genocide will come to pay respect to their family members. And sometime they will come to bring more remains because till now we're still exhuming bodies. So it's not like the exhuming of body has ended because you never know when somebody in the prison is gonna say, "Oh, you know what? I know where your mother was buried. I know where your uncle was buried." So they're still exhuming remains.
Yeah, wait, are you saying they're still
Oh
digging up
yes,
bodies now?
yes,
Oh my
they
gosh.
are.
How do they identify them? Aren't they
Sometimes
bones by
when the
now?
people in the prison they come to the point where they want to repent and they will say, "Oh yes, I did this. I know where this person is." Or sometimes it's just people
Wow.
who get tired of hiding those secrets and then they will come out and say, "Oh yes, I know these mass graves and it has 20 people or 30 people." So there's so many ways that we're still exhuming remains.
Oh.
There's
Oh my
there is a
gosh.
lot of families who haven't found the remains of their loved one as well. So when I worked there, those survivors who came to see either to bury or to visit the loved one, their graves, they would get flashbacks. And it was something that I have never seen because it would be so many, more than 100, 200 getting flashbacks at the same time. And then
Getting what? Oh, flashback.
flashbacks, yes.
Flashbacks?
And then we, as the people who work there, our responsibility is to either take them to the hospital, put them in we used to shut down the upstairs, which was the museum for the kids, and we put everybody who were traumatized. And then we just sit with them, not knowing what to do,
Oh.
trying to comfort
Oh
them.
my.
It was the worst situation I have ever seen in my life when I had, to see somebody with a traumatized and their memory goes back exactly to what did they have experienced during genocide.
So would they actually like be in the moment and they would think they were
Yes,
in
there will be in
danger?
a moment that we run, that we scream, that we touch their heads. Okay, I see blood because somebody have hit them with the crabs, and then they breathe it. That we call their mom. That we ask, pray for the people. Don't kill my kids. Please don't kill my mother. Or please don't kill my child. The memories
Oh
goes
my
back
gosh.
like as if it's happening right now.
Oh my
Yes.
God. Now you told the story about one day there was so many people having such real flashbacks that you didn't have enough ways to get them all, and you were stopping cars on the
Yes.
street to get people to the
Yes,
hospital. Is that
yes.
right?
We would stop people on the streets. Can you please help us? Or the visitors who come to visit the center, the tourists coming to visit, and we ask them to help us to take those people to the hospital. And then we get them to the hospital. We don't know where they came from. We don't know their family. We just leave
Oh
them
wow.
there. And some of them, they have lost their little purse, their wallet because of all those chaos happening around them, and then they get it back probably the next morning and they go back with their trauma. There's no follow-up. There's no such thing as a follow-up. There's no such a thing that they're going to see a therapist the next
Wow.
morning.
So what's going on now between the two tribes? What stopped the killing, and is there
Yes,
peace
yes, there
among
is
these
peace.
tribes?
When the whole world did not respond, and the Rwandan Front Patriotic, it was a group of Tutsi people who left Rwanda in '59. The killing began in '59. They organized themselves from Uganda, and they came in a country. They stopped the killings. So now they had the government, and now it's peaceful. There's no killing going on. We don't have the ID that shows tribe anymore, racial ID that shows Hutu and Tutsi anymore. We don't even use those words, Hutu and Tutsi, in a country anymore. So it's very good now. It's peaceful. It's clean. It's a beautiful country. It's a lot of work. We still have to educate our young people that we need to love each other and to live, to live with one another no matter what.
So the Tutsis did not want to inflict revenge when all this stopped?
When that stops, we heard that the president was really good, right? He did not want nobody to revenge. He did not want nobody to revenge. Even a few people who try to revenge, they get in a serious trouble, so it stopped right away, which was a good thing.
There was was there any kind of restitution or anything to the surviving Tutsis?
It's hard, but the government haven't tried a lot. They haven't tried a lot, but after the genocide, there was so many issues. You're trying to rebuild the infrastructure. You have survivors. You have people coming from all over the countries. There's all this going on, but they have tried, their best.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What is it? What else do you think that we need to know about what you've endured and what the country of Rwanda has endured, Harriet?
I would have to say that any killing, anybody who would think about taking other people's life, killing them because of how God created them, it's wrong. We all created in the image of God. We should just learn how to love each other. We should learn how to respect one another. We should learn how to trust more and to forgive. And that's the only thing that can end the cycle of killing each other. Forgiveness has so much power in a nation, in our families, in a place of work. We need to learn how to forgive each other.
Well, now, is your sister, your surviving sister, did she come to America with you?
She did. She's here.
And how is she doing?
It's tough.
Is she young? Excuse me.
She's younger.
Is she younger
She's
than
younger.
you?
She's such a wonderful person. She's happy. Of course, the memories of genocide they're not gonna go nowhere. But she's very strong. She's a very strong woman.
Has God healed her heart like yours?
It did. She never talked. It's hard for her because she have experienced a lot of bad stuff during genocide. Especially there was one time during genocide that after they killed my mother and my aunt, she had two of our cousins, little boys, and the Mauritians smashed them in her hand. They choked them. So she still have those suffer with those memories. And the other thing that she has seen, it wasn't until last year she was able to give a testimony. And it was so hard even for me to watch my little sister just, opening up and try to talk, but she was, it was hard. I have never cried the way I cried when I saw her speaking. But it was a good reason, she did it, she's strong, she's happy, and that's amazing.
Well, this is probably a funny question to Harriet, but how do you think, because you have a daughter now, how does this affect your mothering, what you've been through? Do you have an answer to that? Or
it does. It does. When you are, it does in many ways. I think it's funny you ask that. There's so many things that I do, and she can recognize and say it's because my mom went through this. I'm overprotecting sometimes. When you lived in a culture, in a country where there is so much atrocities happening, you always are alert that what if something happened? What if something happened? And I have learned how to pray and say, Lord, you are in a control. I am not in a control. So because I was it was affecting the way I was overprotecting. Oh, you cannot drive. Oh, you cannot do this. It was always you cannot do it. Because you are afraid that it's something that the only person you have. And I figured out, my sister and I, we talked about, we have the same issue where we overprotect our kids because we don't know. There's so much happen when we're young, and we're always afraid that you can lose another person. So it requires the power of God and prayers to get to the point where you tell yourself, you are not in a control. God is in a control. Otherwise, you can go crazy trying to protect your family.
So I want to encourage all of you to get Harriet's book by any means necessary. It is available on our site, heartstonenetwork.com. You really should check it out because it's a look into a life that most of us have no clue about. It's a very powerful story, and you won't forget it. So I do encourage you to get her book and check that out. So Harriette, thanks so much for sharing your story with us. Wow,
Thank you so much,
what a story, what an
Sandra.
experience, what a life.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yes, thank you.
Well, may all your dreams come true, girl.
Amen. I receive it. Amen.